If you want to know if it's time to repot your plant, all you got to do is this. Hey, Lee here, helping you become a better plant parent. You can never really know when it's time to repot your Monstera unless you know exactly what the roots look like. Let's take a look at these two plants that I repotted exactly 1 year ago. This one in plastic and this one in terracotta. Looking at the roots in the plant in plastic, you can tell that the roots are pretty healthy, although they are a little bit small, but we can just attribute it to being a small plant itself. The roots have wrapped around the pot, but you can tell that there's clearly more roots on one side of the plant, and I do believe that that side is the one that is facing away from the sun. If you take a look at the bottom of the pot, there aren't really any roots wrapping around the underside of the pot, so in my opinion, this plant is not ready to repot. It could be in here for, I'm thinking, at least another year. But looking at the plant in terracotta, obviously you can't see the roots, so that's where most people are struggling to sort of guess whether it's time to repot their plant. Now, if your plant is small enough, you can actually just pop it straight out of the pot to see what the roots look like. It's really not going to disturb the roots or the plant that badly, especially because it's been rooted in here so securely for over a year. My general rule is if the roots are taking up most of the space in the pot, then yes, it's time to repot. And if you look at the bottom of the pot, there's only one tiny root sticking out. That's really not a great indication of whether it's time to repot or not. You really need to know what the roots look like on the plant as a whole. If you follow me on TikTok, I actually made this video. It's actually not that bad. The point of that whole video was to explain that people tend to overanalyze your pot being root bound. A plant can stay root bound for years and years and years. As long as you are watering and fertilizing, your plant should still continue to grow. As more roots come, your soil starts to break down and disintegrate until your pot is just roots. And that is okay. There's no reason to be rushing. For your plant to get like that in the video, it's probably about 2 or 3 years. And even then, still no rush. So taking a look at the roots now, you can see that they're pretty healthy. They have wrapped around the entire pot. Just a little bit of the soil is coming off of the top. Some of the aerial roots are coming back up. And I would say that this plant could stay here for probably another entire year, but it's not necessary, so we can just repot it now. It'll give it some more space, and it'll also give me some room to put a moss pole in this plant. And by moss pole, I mean I'm just putting a birch bark stick in there. I'm making this plant for my auntie. Her Dieffenbachia ended up reaching the ceiling, so me and my mom went over there to chop it down, took that propagation, and she's looking for a new plant for her kitchen, so I think this Monstera will be a perfect fit for her space. It's getting a little crowded in here, but I've come prepared with my materials. I have my 8-inch pot going up from a 6-inch pot. I also have my birch bark pole, and I have all of my potting soil ready. My aunt usually just puts everything in potting soil, which is perfectly fine, so I'm taking my usual super chunky mix, making it a little more potting soil heavy so that she'll have to water her plant less frequently, so that this guy won't get underwatered once he's over at her house. And while we're on the topic of repotting, because I know that this is a popular topic, there is a right place to put your moss pole. And if you follow the line of this plant, you can see that it will continue growing in this direction. So it's important to put the moss pole right here so the plant will grow, bump into the moss pole, and continue growing straight up. Super important. You can't just stick the moss pole anywhere and then tie your plant so that you're cranking it backwards like this. More of those videos to come, I promise. So my moss pole is in the perfect spot. You will also notice that no, I didn't brush off any of the soil. I didn't try to loosen up the roots. You really do not need to do that. It's not necessarily harmful if you do, but it's just something that you can avoid, save some time on. Now I just got to fill in the rest with my soil mix, making sure that the rest of the aerial roots are in the pot. and our plant should be perfectly ready to go. And this is a perfectly repotted houseplant. Pot is 2 inches more, perfectly placed moss pole, roots are ready to go. All you need to do is give it a good drink, continue your watering schedule as normal. Like the video if it was helpful, and consider subscribing. See you next time.